And welcome back to Tip of the Week. Every pilot needs a medical certificate of one type or another in addition to its pilot certificate in order to fly here in the United States. In this tip, we are going to discuss and contrast the 3 medical certificate options that are available from the FAA, so you can choose the one that best suits your needs as a pilot. We will discuss how the newest option, BasicMed, fits into the scheme of things with the other traditional choices. You might just find that BasicMed is a better fit instead of the conventional third-class certificate. Note that all of the following applies only to experimental or home-built aircraft. We're not going to discuss the options for commercial or certificated aircraft. That would just take too long for the duration of this tip. Let's first review the 2 medical certification options that have been around for quite a while. The third-class medical certificate and flying under the sport pilot's rule. The original medical certificate that has been around for a long time, needed for flying a home-built, was and still is the third-class medical. This is the most challenging medical certificate to obtain in that there are many detailed and historical medical questions asked of the applicant, all under fine and imprisonment if answered untruthfully. After filling out the form, you must then demonstrate to a medical examiner that you are physically fit to fly. The language used on the form to elicit the 25 medical questions begins with, "Have you ever in your life been diagnosed with, had, or do you presently have any of the following?" The very first, frequent or severe headaches. Although answering yes to this may not disqualify you for the certificate, this answer would have to be investigated further by a doctor to see if it was in fact an issue. Here's another, hay fever or allergy. Again, the proverbial can of worms if you answer yes. Navigating through all 25 of these would leave most people with some credible concerns. You might not want to be too honest if there is a reason to think that something might be misunderstood. The name and address of all doctor visits in the last 3 years is required. No stone left unturned. The one important point to take away from the third-class medical application is this. If you fail to receive your third-class medical certificate because of your answers on this form or the medical examination that follows, this will affect your ability to obtain any of the other certificate options that we will cover next. In other words, do not submit this third-class medical application if you have any reason to believe that you will not pass this medical exam. The results of this application and exam are retained by the FAA and used to determine your eligibility for all future medical certifications. Be sure you understand this. If I were to say this in a different way, if the manner in which you answer these questions on the form or the opinion of the examining doctor is such that you will be denied the third-class medical, then you will be denied any of the other medical certificates that we're about to talk about. In other words, do not even apply for a third-class medical if there is reason to believe that you won't pass it. Not trying to scare anyone, but these are important facts that are sometimes misunderstood. At the opposite end of the continuum is the ability to skip the third-class medical altogether, believe it or not. What I'm referring to is the medical requirements for flying under the sport pilot rule. This means you must only fly an aircraft that meets the definition of a light sport aircraft. You can look up all the requirements online for a light sport aircraft, but the important limitations include maximum takeoff weight of 1,320 pounds, maximum airspeed of 120 knots, and maximum seat capacity of 2 people, including the pilot. There are other limitations specified under light sport aircraft rules. The medical requirements for flying under sport pilot rules are simple. A valid driver's license, and you must comply with any restrictions or limitations that license imposes. And as we discussed moments ago, you cannot have been denied your most recent application for a third-class medical certificate, or it cannot have been suspended or revoked. To summarize the medical requirements for sport pilot, if you enjoy flying aircraft that meet the definition of light sport aircraft, you have the maximum freedom to fly without any formal medical certificate. Your driver's license and your good judgment is all that is required. It doesn't get any easier than that. There is one more certificate option, the newest one from the FAA, and the middle ground as I would characterize it. The official name for it is BasicMed. Here are some of the benefits of BasicMed. You can fly an aircraft up to 6,000 pounds and carry up to 6 occupants. This removes some of the substantial limits of the light sport aircraft. What does it take to obtain a BasicMed certification? You must have held a third class or higher FAA medical certificate which was valid any time after July 14, 2006, basically any time in the last 12 years, and that it was not revoked, suspended, or the application for it was denied. You also print out a government form and take it to any state licensed doctor of your choice for a physical exam. The form is filled out by you and your doctor. You get the doctor to sign it, affirming that they see no reason to not let you fly. And then you repeat this exam every 4 years. If a doctor will not sign it for any reason, simply find another doctor that will. Until a doctor signs your paperwork, this information is not sent to the FAA. There are many reasons a doctor may not want to sign this form. They may not want to sign a form they are not familiar with. They may have wide expectations as to the medical conditions needed for pilots. In fact, they may not know the difference between a Boeing 747 and a Vans RV-7. Remember, this is not an aviation medical examiner. This can be your family doctor. Now, if you cannot find any doctor that thinks you are medically worthy of piloting an aircraft, then I also don't want you in the air with me. But there are plenty of legitimate reasons that you may have to find the right doctor that will sign your form. A great place to find a good doctor familiar with these procedures is to use the ones that regularly provide CDL truckers with their regular physical exams for their truck licenses. In addition, a free online course every 2 years is required by the FAA. Simply keep all the paperwork with you in case the FAA requests to look at it. In a nutshell, BasicMed provides a wonderful method to get access to virtually full flight privileges by passing a third-class medical once and then not having to continue the renewal over and over again in the future. One way to characterize the 3 medical certification options is that the third-class medical certificate requires you to prove and document to a medical examiner that you are physically fit. On the other hand, the sport pilot requirement simply asks that you affirm that you are fit to fly. And in the middle, the BasicMed requires you to prove it once with the third-class medical, but then you don't have to repeat that every 2 years. You simply affirm it along with your family doctor agreeing with you. Of course, I have left off lots of details in describing the requirements for these 3 certification processes, but the idea was to give the big picture in contrasting the 3 so that you can investigate further into the one that best suits your type of flying. And the best time to ponder these issues is during that special time when you're back to building.